some of the things you're going through now, you're not gonna understand until like 5 years later, where you're like, "Phew, God did that." Do you know the amount of things? I remember last year, no, in 2023, I was making my 2024 vision board and I put there 10K followers. And I originally thought it was for my podcast, but then like eventually I sort of gave it up. And then I end up, getting that 10K in something completely different. Completely. God always does abundantly more. And that like 10K in the second thing was a lot bigger, and like it was unbelievable to the point where like I didn't even think certain things like this were possible, right? Um and like there's so many things where like I wanted to go like to uni immediately and go, do a 4 year degree and do this and do that and move out of Africa. And now I'm like, why would I even want that? So like obviously when I couldn't go, I was so upset about it. I was like, no, you can't, like, no ways. But now like 2 3 years later, I'm like, actually, thank God. So like, and there's so many things in my life like that, whether it was friends, whether it was people, whether it was certain situations or circumstances where I was like, why is this happening? And then 5 years later, I'm like, thank God this happened. Or like even 2 years later, I'm like, thank God this happened. I think that the main thing is just like you have to be consistent in showing up for God, and like that's gonna look different at different points in your life, right? But the main thing is that you're showing up, right? Because like then at that point, even if it changes, like for me with the 10K and the 10K, yes, the 10K for the first one didn't work, but I worked on something else that I was being called to do by God, and it worked, and it grew even more than 10K, right? So then like that complete shift in believing in what God is telling me is what and that also, that adaptability to be like, okay, maybe this is not the thing that is telling me, let me do this other thing, right? And doing it immediately. Like the longer you take between making a decision and doing that thing, or just between two different decisions, so let's say the last decision didn't work and the new one needs to work now, before, if you take too long, and you're inconsistent, right, with sort of showing up for that second thing, then like it's very hard, because like you have to be very willing and quick to adapt to what you're being told to do, because if you don't do that, then you're always gonna you're not gonna be able to move at the same rate. Like you have to be able to drop everything you're doing today for whatever God's telling you for tomorrow, because it's not necessarily always about yesterday. It's actually, sorry, it's not about yesterday, neither is it about today, right? But it's more about tomorrow, right? Because then like that future could change so many people's lives.